I never thought I'd be writing something like this on Reddit, but I need to get this off my chest. The past few months have completely shattered my world, and writing this down might help me process everything that happened. I met Sarah at a friend's wedding 6 years ago. She was vivacious, charming, and had this infectious laugh that could light up a room. We dated for a year, got married, and settled into what I thought was a happy life together. We both had successful careers. I run my own IT consulting business, and she works in marketing at a large corporation. The first sign something was off came about 8 months ago. Sarah started mentioning this new project manager, Mark, 37M, who had transferred from their London office. At first, it was just casual mentions, how he had great ideas for their campaigns, how he was helping her advance in her career. I was actually happy for her, thinking she found a good mentor. Then came the business trips. Their team had to travel to different branch offices, usually for 3 to 4 days at a time. I noticed Sarah seemed more excited about these trips than usual, always carefully picking out her outfits, spending extra time getting ready. She'd come back with stories about team dinners and late-night strategy sessions, but something felt different. Her eyes would light up when she talked about the projects, or rather, when she talked about working with Mark. I trusted her completely. Maybe that was my first mistake. Looking back, I see all the red flags I missed. The sudden password changes on her phone, the way she'd step out to take calls, how she started going to the gym more often, always at times when Mark would be there too, I later learned. But at the time, I was just proud of her dedication to her career. Proud of how she was growing professionally. Proud of my beautiful, ambitious wife. If I only knew then what I know now. The day I discovered the truth started like any other. I had a client meeting get cancelled last minute, so I decided to surprise Sarah by bringing lunch to her office. We hadn't been spending much quality time together lately, and I thought it might be nice to have an impromptu lunch date. When I arrived at her office building around 12:30, the receptionist knew me from previous visits and waved me through. I took the elevator to the 14th floor, carrying her favorite sushi rolls and a bubble tea she always craved. Sarah's office was at the end of a long corridor, somewhat isolated from the main workspace. As I approached, I heard muffled sounds coming from inside. The blinds were drawn, unusual for her, as she always complained about needing natural light. Something in my gut told me to pause. That's when I heard it. A man's voice, followed by Sarah's unmistakable giggle. The same one that had once made me fall in love with her. Then, sounds that no husband ever wants to hear coming from his wife's office. I stood there, frozen, my hand hovering over the door handle. Part of me wanted to burst in, but another part needed absolute certainty. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only a minute, I opened the door. There they were, Sarah and Mark, half naked on her office couch. The sushi dropped from my hands, scattering across the floor. Sarah screamed, scrambling to cover herself, while Mark jumped up, hastily pulling up his pants. "Jason, it's not. I can explain," Sarah shrieked, her face a mixture of shock and something else, not shame, but anger. Like I was the one who had done something wrong by catching them. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. I just turned and walked out. Sarah's voice echoing behind me. "Jason, wait. You overreacting. It's not what you think. Not what I think." They were having sex in her office, in the middle of a workday, on the couch where we had eaten lunch together countless times. I made it to my car before the shaking started. My phone was buzzing nonstop with messages from Sarah, each one more hysterical than the last. It was a mistake. "Please come back. You making this bigger than it needs to be. We need to talk about this like adults. Don't you dare tell anyone about this." I turned off my phone and drove to my brother's house. I needed time to think, to process what I just witnessed. But one thing was already crystal clear. My marriage was over. There they were, Sarah and Mark, half naked on her office couch. The sushi dropped from my hands, scattering across the floor. Sarah screamed, scrambling to cover herself, while Mark jumped up, hastily pulling up his pants. Jason, it's not. I can explain. Sarah shrieked, her face a mixture of shock and something else, not shame, but anger. Like I was the one who had done something wrong by catching them. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. I just turned and walked out. Sarah's voice echoing behind me. Jason, wait. You overreacting. It's not what you think. Not what I think. They were having sex in her office, in the middle of a workday, on the couch where we had eaten lunch together countless times. I made it to my car before the shaking started. My phone was buzzing nonstop with messages from Sarah, each one more hysterical than the last. It was a mistake. Please come back. You making this bigger than it needs to be. We need to talk about this like adults. Don't you dare tell anyone about this. I turned off my phone and drove to my brother's house. I needed time to think, to process what I just witnessed. But one thing was already crystal clear. My marriage was over. I spent that night at my brother's place, ignoring the 47 missed calls and over 100 messages from Sarah. Around 9 p.m., she started sending emails since I wasn't responding to her texts. Each one was more manipulative than the last. How dare you embarrass me at work like that? You being childish by not answering my calls. This wouldn't have happened if you paid more attention to me. Mark means nothing to me. It was just physical. My brother, bless him, read through some of them and advised me to forward everything to my email and screenshot all the messages. You'll need these later, he said grimly. He'd gone through a nasty divorce himself a few years back. Around midnight, the doorbell started ringing. Sarah had tracked me down, probably called my parents pretending to be worried about me, and was creating a scene outside my brother's house. She was screaming that I was overreacting and that plenty of couples work through these things. My brother's wife called the police when Sarah started banging on the windows. When they arrived, Sarah put on an Oscar-worthy performance, crying about how her mentally unstable husband had run away and she was just worried about my safety. The officers, however, weren't buying it, especially since she reeked of wine. They asked her to leave and suggested she call a cab. As she was being escorted to the taxi, she turned back and screamed, "This is all your fault. If you weren't so boring in bed, I wouldn't have had to find excitement elsewhere." The next morning, I met with a divorce attorney before going to work. She advised me to move quickly, gather financial documents, secure any joint accounts, and document everything. While I was in the meeting, Sarah had apparently gone to our house, packed up some designer bags and jewelry, including her grandmother's ring that she promised would go to our future daughter, and taken our joint credit cards on a shopping spree. The icing on the cake? She posted on Facebook about how relationships are complicated, and there are two sides to every story, making vague comments about forgiveness and growth. Several of our mutual friends were already commenting with heart emojis and "stay strong" messages. They had no idea what really happened, but they were about to find out. Edit. Thanks for the awards and support. To those asking, yes, I have proof of the credit card spree, and yes, my lawyer is handling it. After the shopping spree incident, I knew I needed to protect myself. My lawyer advised me to return home and document everything, so I did. What I found made me sick to my stomach. While going through our home office, I discovered a second phone hidden in Sarah's desk drawer. It was an older model, probably her backup phone for special communications. The password was our wedding date. Ironic, right? What I found inside was worse than I imagined. Hundreds of messages between her and Mark going back nearly a year. Photos I wish I could unsee. Hotel receipts. But the worst part? Messages to her friends about how she was living her best life, and how Mark was her soulmate, while her boring husband had no clue. One particular message thread with her best friend Jenny stood out. "Sarah, Just booked another business trip with Mark next week. Smile with horns, Jenny. Girl, you replaying with fire. What if Jason finds out? Sarah. Please, he's too stupid to notice anything. Besides, he thinks I am networking for a promotion. Rolling on the floor laughing, Jenny. You bad. But I love it. Get yours, queen. Crown. The business trips I'd been paying for with our joint account. Weekend getaways with Mark. The late night emergency meetings. You guessed it. She even used our anniversary dinner cancellation, where she claimed to be sick, to meet him at a hotel 3 blocks from our house. While I was processing this, Sarah came barging in. She used her key. Note to self. Change locks immediately. Her mascara was smeared, but this time, she wasn't playing the victim. She was furious that I invaded her privacy by looking at her second phone. Those messages were private, she screamed. You had no right. I'll sue you for invasion of privacy. When I calmly mentioned that anything purchased with joint funds during marriage was community property, she completely lost it. She started throwing things, pictures, vases, anything she could grab. Then she dropped this bomb. You want to know the truth? Mark's not the first. There was David from accounting last year, and Chris from the gym before that. You such a fool, Jason. Such a trusting, naive fool. I recorded the entire meltdown on my phone. Her face when she realized I was recording. Priceless. I didn't say a word. Just sent the recording to my lawyer and walked out, leaving her screaming in our living room. As I drove away, she texted, I didn't mean any of that. I was just angry. Please come back. I'll explain everything. Too late, Sarah. Way too late. Edit. Yes, I gave all the evidence to my lawyer. And no, she can sue me for recording her in our shared house during her meltdown. My state has single-party consent laws. The next few days were a blur of lawyers, documentation, and Sarah's increasingly desperate attempts to control the narrative. But everything changed when Jenny, Sarah's best friend, reached out to me. Apparently, Sarah had been bragging to their entire friend group about her affairs for months, portraying herself as some kind of romantic hero trapped in a passionless marriage. Jenny had saved everything: group chat messages, photos from Sarah's business trips with Mark, even videos of Sarah boasting about how she manipulated me into paying for her rendezvous. Jenny's conscience had finally gotten the better of her. I should have told you months ago, she wrote. But Sarah convinced us you were the bad guy. She said you were controlling, emotionally unavailable, even implied you might be cheating first. I am so sorry, Jason. The screenshots she sent made my blood boil. Sarah, group chat, just maxed out Jason's credit card on lingerie for my weekend with Mark. Fire, friend. OMG girl, you so bad. Sarah. Please, Jason makes enough. Besides, he owes me for all these boring years nail care. Another gem. Sarah. Had to fake a migraine to skip his stupid family dinner. Mark got us a suite at the Ritz. Throwing kisses, Jenny. What if someone sees you? Sarah. That's half the fun. Besides, Jason's family is so boring. They probably still talking about potato salad recipes. Face with rolling eyes, I forwarded everything to my lawyer. But the real bombshell dropped when Mark's wife reached out to me on LinkedIn. Turns out, Sarah wasn't his only affair. He had 3 other ongoing relationships with women in different departments. HR was going to have a field day with this one. Sarah must have gotten wind of these developments because she showed up at my office. My assistant tried to stop her, but Sarah bulldozed past her, screaming about betrayal and how I was ruining her reputation by exposing her affairs. You trying to destroy me, she shrieked in front of my entire office. After everything I've done for you, done for me, like maxing out our credit cards, sleeping with multiple coworkers, mocking me to her friends. Security escorted her out, but not before she threatened to tell everyone what you really like. I guess she forgot about all the evidence I had of what she was really like. The cherry on top? She drunk posted on Instagram later that night, claiming I was abusive for exposing her private life, and that she was the real victim in all this. Within an hour, Jenny and several other friends had commented with screenshots of Sarah's earlier messages bragging about her affairs. The post disappeared quickly after that. Things at Sarah's workplace imploded spectacularly this week. Remember those work meetings and team building sessions she and Mark organized? Turns out they were billing the company for those hotel rooms and fancy dinners. The expense reports they submitted were now under intense scrutiny by a junior accountant had noticed the pattern months ago but was too intimidated by Mark's position to say anything. Now that everything was out in the open, she came forward with a detailed spreadsheet of all their suspicious expenses. We talking thousands of dollars in client meetings that never happened. Sarah's response? She tried to blame it all on Mark. He forced me to help him cover up the expenses. She told I was afraid of losing my job if I didn't play along. But her performance fell apart when they showed her the emails where she explicitly planned these rendezvous, complete with champagne requests and suite upgrades. Not to mention the intimate photos they taken in the company conference room, which IT found in their corporate email exchanges. Mark, proving himself to be just as spineless, tried to throw Sarah under the bus too. He claimed she was obsessed with him and had manipulated him into the affair. Funny how he didn't mention the other women he was seeing or the company money he been misusing. The day they were both suspended pending investigation, Sarah completely lost it. She stormed into the CEO's office, screaming that she was being slut-shamed and threatened to sue for sexual harassment. The CEO, a woman in her 50s, calmly played back the security footage of Sarah and Mark's office encounters. "Would you like to explain how this constitutes harassment?" she asked Sarah. "Because from where I am sitting, this looks like two employees violating multiple company policies and misappropriating company funds." Sarah ran out crying, but not before announcing that everyone was just jealous of her living her true life. Later that evening, she sent me a barrage of texts. "This is all your fault. They ruined my career. You need to tell them it was all a misunderstanding. I'll lose everything because of you." I blocked her number after she threatened to make me pay for not defending her. My lawyer says these messages are just adding to our case, showing her pattern of emotional manipulation and threats. The kicker? Mark's wife found out he's been doing this at every company he's worked for. Apparently, this isn't his first rodeo with expense fraud and office affairs. Sarah really knew how to pick them. The divorce proceedings started this week, and holy hell, did I discover some financial bombshells. My lawyer had advised me to do a deep dive into our finances, and what I found made me physically sick. Remember those designer bags Sarah took? Turns out they weren't the only luxury items she'd been collecting. She had a secret storage unit filled with high-end purchases, all bought with our joint account money or credit cards. We're talking about $50,000 plus in designer clothes, bags, and jewelry that she'd been accumulating over the past year. But here's the real kicker. She'd been secretly transferring money from our joint savings account into a private account for months. Small amounts at first, then larger sums as she got bolder. The account name? New Life Fund. How poetic. When confronted about this in the lawyer's office, Sarah's response was peak delusion. That money was for our future. I was saving it for us. Apparently meant her and Mark, according to the email trail where they discussed using it for a down payment on a condo. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table when Sarah suddenly blurted out, "Besides, Jason owes me that money for all the emotional labor I did in this marriage. Do you know how hard it is to pretend to love someone for years?" My lawyer couldn't have looked happier if I handed her a winning lottery ticket. Sarah's lawyer called for a break immediately, but the damage was done. When we resumed, Sarah tried a different approach. Through tears, she claimed she had a shopping addiction and needed help, not punishment. The same shopping addiction that somehow only bought lingerie in Mark's favorite colors and hotel rooms under his corporate account. Then came the finale. She demanded to stay in our house because, and I quote, "They made it into a home and Jason doesn't appreciate it anyway. He can go live in some bachelor pad. The fact that I paid for the house entirely with my inheritance from my grandparents? Irrelevant, according to her. She invested emotional equity in it." My lawyer shut that down fast, presenting documentation that not only was the house my inherited property, but Sarah had been planning to move in with Mark once they figured out how to get rid of the Jason problem, their words, from their emails. As we left the lawyer's office, Sarah tried one last manipulation. "I am willing to forgive you for exposing my private life if you just be reasonable about the assets." I walked away as she yelled after me, "You regret this. No one will ever love you like I pretended to." At least she finally told the truth about something. The family fallout hit this weekend, and it was even messier than I expected. Sarah's parents, who they always had a good relationship with, finally heard the full story. They had been avoiding me since Sarah fed them some story about me being controlling and emotionally abusive. Sarah's sister Rachel reached out first. Apparently, Sarah had asked to stay at her place after being suspended from work, but spent the whole time badmouthing me and playing victim. Then Rachel found Sarah trying to sell that family heirloom ring, the one from their grandmother, online to start her new life. Rachel exploded and called their parents. They staged an intervention at Rachel's house, where Sarah thought she was coming for a supportive family dinner. According to Rachel, it went something like this: "Dad, we saw the evidence, Sarah. The messages, the expenses, everything. Sarah, those were private. Jason had no right to share those. Mom, you used your father's business contact at the Ritz for your affair meetups? They known him for 20 years. Sarah, I needed a discount. Mark and I were on a budget." Rachel, "A budget? You spent $50,000 on designer clothes." Sarah, "I needed to look good for my soulmate." Dad, "Soulmate? The married man who's been running this same scam at every job." Sarah apparently tried to storm out, but not before dropping this gem: "None of you understand real love. Jason trapped me in a boring life, and Mark showed me how to be free." Her dad's response? "Free? Is that what you call stealing from your husband and destroying 2 marriages?" The best part? Sarah's mom called me afterward to apologize. She was in tears, telling me how ashamed she was of her daughter's behavior. She also revealed something interesting. Sarah had pulled similar stunts in college, having affairs with 2 of her professors and then playing victim when caught. "We thought she'd grown up," her mom said. "We thought you had helped her become a better person. We're so sorry, Jason." Then came the twist. Sarah showed up at her parents' house at midnight, demanding they give her money to start over, since her accounts were frozen pending the fraud investigation. When they refused, she threatened to tell all their friends that they were abusive parents who never loved her. Her dad's response? He called the police himself and had her escorted off their property. Now Sarah's calling everyone we know, claiming her whole family has abandoned her in her time of need, and that she's the victim of a conspiracy to destroy her life. No, Sarah, you destroyed your own life. The rest of us are just finally seeing the truth. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it and learned from it. I appreciate your likes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and comment on the video. See you soon.